Hello everyone, Jack Wolf here, or Myrick-Smith if you want to go by my channel name. Yes, I know. I freaking know. Swear to God, if you freaking tell in the comments that it's been forever since I last uploaded, I will track you down and smack you. Happy New Year's. That's not all. I recently watched all of Game Theory's Fun Freddy's videos. Let me just shoot that because there we go. God, my house is dark. I have all the lights on this house and I still can't get good lighting. God damn stutter. So I decided to give my opinion of the Five Nights at Freddy's series with my theory. Want out, dogs? Go ahead. Yeah, I'm kind of the only one here right now, and all the dogs are in my room, so I just kind of open the door so they can leave. Close. So yeah. Basically, having seen all MapHat's opinions, I'm going to give my personal theory, one that I've crafted. One which, personally, I believe makes most sense of all the details, as I found a way to fit them all in pretty well. And unlike MapHat, I actually figured out my personal theory pretty much like near the beginning of my school. I've slowly modified it, but halfway into this, like, I already figured out everything by, like, September. So, yeah. I'm basically going to give my personal theory. So, it all starts off in around the early 80s, or late 70s. Very late 70s. Not exactly sure when, because it never gets... In which the first event would be Purple Guy killing the child that would eventually become the puppet. And so, afterwards, Fredbear and Friends opens. Now that Fazbear Entertainment does not own Fredbear at the moment. Not yet. In fact, it makes a lot more sense for Purple Guy to be the owner. Think about it. He kills a kid, and next time we see him is in the back room with the name tag with his new with a slightly different shade of purple. Five Nights at Freddy's 2, the two sprites that we have of him would be either normal purple or a darker purple, which is royal purple. That in mind, you can see where I'm going with this. Purple Guy is the one who owns Fredbear. The fact that in 1983, going against what Mappa said, that thing on TV is not a cartoon, but a commercial. I say this because I've looked back and I've watched old cartoons from the 80s, and yeah, sometimes they have the logo on them, but it's not nearly as portrayed. In fact, it's usually a big bright logo with the big over-decorated logo showing off the skills of the company, but the date is usually really tiny. Add that to the fact that it's also that frequently when I look back at old commercials, though, I see the date plastered nearly everywhere when you look back at older commercials. You can tell what timeline it's from, and in the early days of televisions, people would put like copyright blank time. A lot. I mean a lot. Rather than at the credits, they'd usually have to start. I don't ever see a copyright time thing on old cartoons until near the end of the episode of that old cartoon. So, yeah. And same commercials because it's how short it is. It's a TV show. Why would Scott have made it so short, and why would it be, if anything, if it's a cartoon, it would have been the intro. But why would Scott have added in as a cartoon? It makes no logical sense from both a business and logic standpoint. A new company or a new person just buys a new brand. No, you don't no one would go immediately to cartoon and sister location. No, they would focus on on one area only. Since Fredbear was originally a diner, he made it into a new restaurant, Fredbear and Friends. And I also think this is where Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy first originate from. New Fredbear design and a golden Bonnie, which I'll just revert to as either, because I'm still a bit unsure, because I think maybe Bonnie may have existed, like Spring Bonnie may have existed at the original Fredbears, but not as proficient. But I'll just call him Spring Bonnie. But even though, when you look at the commercial, which is more likely what it is, I say it's the first because we only see Bonnie and Foxy in this commercial, and they look drastically different than any other version, which that this is their first incarnation before Freddy Fazbear's, because Foxy and Bonnie have a really different appearance. Bonnie is a brighter shade of blue and looks very different from any form of Springtrap sprite or any form of Spring Bonnie we've seen throughout the game so far. Though in FNAF World they pretty much have the same design, but it's supposed to be Five Nights at Freddy's world, not Fredbear's world. I'm getting off topic now, but yeah. And Foxy looks so drastically different. Like the fox we know is red, has a light red belly on his abdomen, brown shorts, his hook, and an eye patch. But this Foxy commercial has no shorts and has a hook. But I've looked at the sprite I've looked at the sprite on multiple playthroughs and in multiple speculation videos in which I've tried to figure out more about the lore, and it doesn't look like he has an eye patch. But this is a lot different from any form of Foxy we know. So it's safe to assume that maybe he wasn't even Foxy. Simply put, it's Fredbear and Friends. If there's no sister location for Freddy Fazbear's Pizza at this point, which there most likely would not have been, even by video game standards, I don't think this, or the Bonnie and Freddy we see, Bonnie and Foxy, I am really bad with this, is actually the Bonnie and Foxy we know. They might not even be called that, because it's the original version. So, after we got that out of the way, eventually, the FNAF 4 kid happens. In '83, the brother and his friends put the FNAF 4 kid in Fredbear's mouth. And I've already, in a previous video, that he's pretty much dead. People very much that he's dead. He is dead. He's not recovering hospital. He's going here to die. It's because, as I said, this is the mouth movement. The head would be here. The back of the head would have been crushed. Same goes for the front. At most, as I said previously, the frontal lobe would have been the only thing to survive, and it would have been the only thing left, because this is the area where the skull's the hardest. So, yeah, the kid is straight up dead. There's no way he could survive that. He's going to the hospital to die. And this is early 80s, which makes his chance of survival even slimmer. So yeah, he's dead. There's no doubt about that. He's dead. After that flop, Purple Guy has no choice but to sell them to a new company, Fazbear Entertainment, as they will call themselves. In which case, after Fredbear's Family Diners close, I think it's either the same building or it's modified, because it looks eerily similar to the building in FNAF. It really does look eerily. It has an eerie similarity. It really does. Just FNAF 1 building. And so, yeah. Thinking it could possibly be the Fredbear and Friends location, just modified. Kind of makes sense, as considering he already has the animatronics, a small redesign would be in case. And I think the reason Purple Guy was named is because he works for Fazbear Entertainment as the animatronic designer. Think about it. He designed the original. FNAF 3, we see him take apart the animatronics with his bare hands. I'm not joking. I'm pretty sure he uses his bare hands. Because in the cutscene, there's nothing he uses, unlike the FNAF 2 minigame, which we see he has a phone-like object, which is most likely a crank, used for the spring-lock suits, which, yeah, makes sense, as if you watch Game Theory or watch a lot of speculation videos about Five Nights at Freddy's, you'll pretty much know that by now. So, since he designed them, it makes sense that he would know specifically where to attack on these, by that point in FNAF 3, very old, rusted, brittle, broken down animatronics to shatter them apart. And more astonishing about this is that at his youngest, Purple Guy would have to be at least in his either late 40s or early 50s. At his oldest, early 70s or late 60s, which it's a bit astonishing. Yeah. Now then, at this point, Shadow Freddy exists. Now then, I'm pretty sure the FNAF 4 kid is Shadow Freddy. The reason I say that, it's the only real thing he could become when you look about this from a lore perspective. When you actually look at it, not look through it. Look like you literally look at the imagery, not look into the imagery. Seems very likely, or it's pretty much obvious that he is Shadow Freddy. Reason being, he would have no reason to want Purple Guy dead. That's to the fact that Purple Guy, I think, this is a bit stretching, but I'm pretty sure Purple Guy gave the kid the plushies. Think about it. His brother is too big of an ass to be nice to his little brother. And if he has a sister, which seems very likely from, like, one of the rooms, she spends time on her own personal toy collection. So, who would have given him the plushies? And considering how that the Purple Guy's part in the game and his brother's part in the game are about the same height. I mean, his brother's an adult. So with it, that means his brother's would be at least within the same age range as Purple Guy. Yeah, that explains why he lives with him. And because of that means his brother's the one who keeps bringing him the Fredbears. Eventually, he would have met up with Purple Guy, as he supposedly cries under the tables a lot. From looks of it, his brother leaves him there, but it doesn't. From the minigame, seems to be not a short distance in between them. So, with that in mind, Purple Guy probably would have found him sooner or later crying under one of the tables. And most likely feeling a bit guilty, as I'm saying he feels guilty because he killed a kid. Feels a bit sad for the kid, so gives him the plushies to help him not be so scared of the animatronics. Doesn't really do much, but probably would do something, as Foxy returns to a plushie in the main gameplay of FNAF 4. So with that in mind, it means he likely remembers that they're toys, not monsters. They're not meant to be scary, it's meant to be cute. Which would make a bit of sense. So, he becomes Shadow Freddy and chooses to be purple, because it reminds him of one of the few people who actually gave the poor bastard some sympathy. Also explains why he helps Purple Guy in the FNAF 3 minigames, because Purple Guy tried to help him, so he might as well help him as well. Even though he knows he's a murderer, but yeah, he still has sort of the mindset of a child. And at this point in FNAF 3, any normal person, and Purple Guy most likely is probably been driven to insanity by guilt, because by this point he's murdered like the puppet, the 5 kids that become Bonnie and Chica, the toy animatronics, which would be like around 11, which would be about 11 kids. be about 11 to 12 kids. Yeah, that's a lot of people to kill. And unless you're a straight up sociopath, you would feel guilty about that. Which is probably why he's there in the first place. Probably trying to right his wrongs. I mean, well, yeah, it makes sense because later on, because, well, think about this logically. If you killed 12 people, would you not feel guilty? I mean, hello, you killed 12 people. If you don't feel guilty, there's something wrong with you. Explains why he has a big crooked smile. He's going insane, so he has, because of it, he has this big broken insane smile. Yeah. So, as we keep going on, the public gives 5 kids life, and they begin hunting down their murderer. At this point, Purple Guy knows that the animatronics can be haunted, which is probably why he killed the 5 kids. Think about it. It would be pretty easy to notice if the robot was being haunted. Because in Freddy Fazbear's, they're known to have walking animatronics. Think about it this way. The animatronics afterwards would not have really been designed to walk on their own. Especially with the redesigns, as the suits, the redesigns would make it easier, but definitely wouldn't be designed for animatronic movement. The knees and stuff would be for spring lock mode. Especially in the animatronics, as any knees there would be purely aesthetic. I mean, it'd be pretty easy to notice if something's haunted. I mean, most people assumed that pretty easily from the first game, as the fact that the animatronics can walk around. And, yeah, as the timelines of the animatronics are made, it makes no sense they would be able to walk around. So obviously, they would kind of have to be haunted to be able to walk around. Purple Guy sort of knows this, but sort of doesn't. He's probably, at this point, he probably is a bit insane. Probably is, or already has a very unstable mental state at this point, because he killed a kid a few years ago, and then a few years before that, most likely, like a kid he was trying to help, someone who the kid considered would help him, ended up dying. Yeah, you can see where I'm going with the Purple Guy thing. And also, I want to say that Purple Guy kind of can't be Phone Guy. Just saying that out there now, he can't be Phone Guy. Because Purple Guy would have owned Fredbear's. Phone Guy doesn't even barely remembers the place. Purple Guy would be guilty about the golden suit thing, but by this point he'd already been insane. So we'd be able to tell through his voice that he's guilty, but also a bit kind of losing his mind. Phone Guy is distraught and kind of suffering a small emotional breakdown in a way, which kind of points to this. Phone Guy is the kid's brother. Phone Guy says Foxy was always his favorite. In FNAF 4, the kid's brother always wears a Foxy mask. Phone Guy seems very distraught by the fact that someone used a gold suit to lure kids away. Harkening back that makes him remembers that a golden animatronic killed his brother, which also explains why he barely remembers Fredbear. Because he doesn't want to. He's traumatized by the fact that he killed his brother. Don't ask him, but he still killed his brother. Think about that. There's no way someone wouldn't suffer some form of mental, some sort of mental scar from that. There's no way he wouldn't have. Waiting for Freddy Fazbear, which is new design animatronics, new name, it would look either similar but always have a difference. He would recognize Foxy. And maybe he was called Foxy, but that's a bit of speculation whether or not he's called Foxy or not. Foxy is a good name, so I don't see... Foxy is a rather simple name to make. Like Foxy. Fox with a Y. It really wouldn't take that much to make a name like that. In fact, Scott wasn't originally going to name Foxy Foxy. How that stuck. So, Purple Guy would have easily stole that name off because, well, think about it. It's a rather simple name to make. No need to be so stingy about it. Fredbear, on the other hand, he would have kept. So, replace him with Freddy. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Golden Freddy, and new Spring Freddy and Spring Bonnie suits, as well as animatronics. This would allow for rather interesting creations, as, simply put, the animatronics, besides Spring, would have all been haunted. Yeah. So eventually, after a while, the smell gets out, and Freddy Fazbear's Pizza is shut down. Eventually, the new and improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. And Rat Pack questioned why it's constantly birthday party. If you're a pizzeria chain and not prepared to have a birthday party every day, then by all means, you deserve to go out of business. Plenty of people pointed that out, that if you're a pizzeria, you're not prepared to have a birthday every day, you deserve to go out of business. So that's where that's where pretty much all your money's gonna come from. And most likely, you're gonna have a birthday party every day. Because every day someone dies, and every day someone is born. That's kind of how life works. There's only so many days in a year. So, yeah. Eventually, as we continue to move along, Purple Guy is brought back to make new animatronics. So, based off the old toy designs from his old place, he makes the Toy series animatronics. Toy Freddy, Toy Bonnie, Toy Chica, Toy Foxy, which later becomes Mangle, and adds the brand new Balloon Boy, as well as the puppet from the previous place. Now, the people would have wondered, Puppet most likely would have been at the old place, but Blesser played. It seems in the second game, he's the prize corner maintenance person. First game, he has a very waiter-ish feel. Like, I'm just speculating on what I think Puppet would have done, so you can skip this if you'd like. I don't know how long this will be, I don't know. And looking at the Puppet's design, has a very waiter-ish feel. Well, in the second place, has a more of a clownish look at him with the rosy cheeks and the purple instead of blue. So, yeah. Pretty sure he probably would have been a waiter at the old place. Wonder how that would have worked out, though. Like they're stock, and you'd have really weird hands. Wonder how he'd do it. Music box thing is obviously would be new for the second place. Man, it's late at night when I'm making this. So as we keep going on, Toy Foxy, which I'm pretty sure was a girl before becoming Mangle, which is an it. Mangle is an it, not a he. Phone guy calls Toy Foxy a he because, well, calls to Mangle he because it's Toy Foxy. Think about it. And a lot of people pointed out, due to the Toy Foxy design in FNAF World, Toy Foxy was Mangle, but Toy Foxy was a she, but Mangle is definitely an it. You can't give a gender to Mangle. Mangle may have the feminine face with a very feminine-like head, but the other head could very well have a masculine personality, meaning she would have had a parent. Eventually, after becoming Mangle, it now is two consciousness, essentially, that are forced into one, allowing for it to be very creepy. As during the day, if it was a lot active, which probably isn't, as the kids are probably disassembling it, reassembling it, and just remaking it, some kids probably turn it on to see how it works, because when you're a toddler, you're curious about stuff. So my headcanon voice would be a very, like, one head would have a feminine one, the other head would have a masculine. Each one have parts of the personality, but they both share a consciousness, the same body. They share the same mind. So it would be like you'd have a very feminine voice out of one mouth, masculine voice out of the one other shoulder, and eventually they'd speak in both at once, which would be really creepy when you think about it. Like, that would be incredibly creepy. Why did I think that? Granted, it makes quite a bit of sense when you think about this. At this point, people are wondering who the hell Myrick-Smith is. Purple guy. Which explains why the animatronics are so aggressive. To be so aggressive. Because he's for you and he's been working on them. So he decides to take an engineer and night guard to see how they work well. Evidently, he knows they'll move around but still can act as if they don't. Most likely think he probably would have made the personalities of the animatronics more free, but probably would have been a lot more limited in terms of like actual individuality. So it'd be really weird. So it's like the David Veneer voices for the old animatronics would be very accurate, except just not broken. Where the toy animatronics, their voice would have what you'd expect them to be, but they would have a very childish nature to them, childlike bubbliness to them, but with the personalities of the animatronics intact, as that's how he would have designed the AI to the best of his abilities. Which explains why he's fired, because the last week before last week when it wasn't open yet, he was constantly modifying the animatronics to make them less aggressive during the night for the next night guard. Eventually he's found out and is fired from that job, but he still works for them as an engineer, so he takes day shift in case he has to do last minute repairs. Then, I know I kind of skipped over this, but Shadow Bonnie. I'm pretty sure we all know that Jeremy Fitzgerald's a Bite of 87 victim, but I say it's not Mangle. Simply put, Mangle would constantly be ripped apart during the day, so we wouldn't ever get a chance. I say Toy Bonnie because of Shadow Bonnie. Think about this. A bite victim becomes Shadow Freddy, a bite victim becomes Shadow Bonnie. Which also explains why Shadow Bonnie is so rare. Unlike, similar to what the kid's kind of been doing, looking through his memories to try and find a way to escape his nightmare, Shadow Bonnie is probably trying to go back somehow. Since he's a ghost, he probably would be able to do something similar to that to try and warn himself, but he can't, because he can't mess with the timeline. So, as we keep going on, we later see the Bite of 87 happen. Well, we don't see it, but we know it happens. And with it, Jeremy is bitten by Bonnie, Toy Bonnie. I say Toy Bonnie because Mangle's being ripped apart. Balloon Boy, which would also be haunted, I'm pretty sure, would be too busy giving balloons. Toy Freddy is a singer. Chica, according to a lot, would most likely be a backup dancer or a backup vocalist. So Toy Chica would be doing the same thing the original Chica did, singing along with Toy Freddy. Well, with Freddy, not Toy Freddy. I need to work on my wording of things. This is probably really incomprehensible due to how bad I am at explaining things. So, as we continue onward, Toy Bonnie, being the guitarist, in any band, the guitarist is usually most energetic one. The one you see jumping off the screen, most likely. Yeah. This video is almost 30 minutes. Who am I kidding? Map had uploaded a 2-hour-long episode of Game Theory. Bit stuffy. And so, as we keep going, we just continue onward. Now, I would like to explain the spring animatronic suits, but I'll get that right now, actually. Well, a bit later. So after that, Toy Bonnie's the one who does the Bite of 87. So Jeremy's just kind of stuck here. He really doesn't do much besides either A, talk to Shadow Freddy, or just observe the other animatronics, as the other animatronics are scrapped soon after. Meaning the souls are kind of just, those souls pass on as they would have been destroyed and smelted down, and the old ones given the upgrades and better suits. Bonnie changed to a more purplish color, but that doesn't really do much as they would barely have to modify them. Just give the suits a new dye. Yeah, I see where I'm going with all this. Eventually, Final Freddy's 1 happened. Mike Schmitz comes along and experiences all this paranormal crap. Before him, Phone Guy was the last one to work there. And notice how throughout the entire game, only on night 4 at his death, does he ever show any form of emotion. He's close to death, but he still has this calm, serene attitude to him. Like he has this sort of voice to him where even in his death, he's like, maybe it won't be so bad. Like, he's like trying to keep up, but he doesn't really have fear in his heart. Until his death. He goes, oh no. But most people think it's distraught, but I hear sorrow. And the voice we hear is the sound effect you get when Golden Freddy's in the room. Think about it. Chica just got in, and he can't lift his camera up because he'll get jump scared. Well, he'll get killed. Fox is banging out the door, so he's low on power. Freddy's in the kitchen and making that loud music box noise. Goes down, Chica gets in, and guess what? Golden Freddy's right there, and he faces it. A golden suit. A golden bear suit. The last thing he sees before he dies, and the last thing he probably thinks, is that his brother is finally getting his revenge. Think about it. He probably would... He thinks but he probably would have... But this looks like his first encounter with Golden Freddy. With it, well, it makes sense that he'd be so shocked and goes, oh no. Because there's a distinct bit of sorrow in his voice, if you listen carefully. I can't do a good Phone Guy impression, but I do my best. Not very good, though. God, I'm not good with impressions at all. So, seeing a golden suit makes him remember his brother. What does he think? Oh my god. He finally puts together like, oh my god, these animatronics are haunted. And who does he think he's haunting? The gold one? His brother. Finally getting his revenge. And so it just pains him to see this gold suit. Explains why he's so distraught when a gold suit is mentioned in Final Freddy's 2, because it makes him remember, as I said earlier, that he killed his brother accidentally with a gold suit. Of course, I've yet to explain the nightmares. Nightmare is a relative term. In Bloodborne, there is the nightmare of Mensis, the nightmare frontier, the hunter's nightmare. Bloodborne just brings a good point. Nightmares are mainly worlds made by our minds. The nightmare of Mensis is a world hosted by Murgo. Seems likely that it's called the nightmare because it's the nightmare of the people, but a dream of the Great One. Same thing with the FNAF 4 Knights. He's made a nightmare for himself. What is this? The same problem the puppet had. At this point, the puppet is corrupted, revenge-filled, because he's been using them to kill the Night Guards to try and get his revenge. Think about it. He gave them life. They never would have haunted the suits if not for the puppet. He isn't saving them. He's using them. Which is why the puppet in FNAF 3 minigame, The Happiest Day, he's the only spirit with a dark sprite. He's the only one using a dark color scheme. So, yeah, he's corrupt. The other ones are still pure. He's just been using them. And as we continue to move on, we can see this more and more blatant in FNAF 3. FNAF 1, Phone Guy's dead by the hands of Golden Freddy, which Phone Guy presumes is his little brother. Which really, that's just... Man, that's... Just think about this logically. Your entire life, you know you accidentally killed your own brother because you using a gold suit. Later on here, a golden suit is being used to kill other people, which just pains you more because you remember the gold suit. Then you get killed by something that is a golden suit. By literally a golden suit is what kills you. And that's a big whammy right there. Like, not only do you get that traumatizing experience etched into your brain, you're reminded of it, and it's what kills you. Like, that's some dark stuff, Scott. That is dark and depressing. Why am I burping in this video? What do I care? So, as we continue onwards, FNAF 3 minigames happen after the place is eventually closed down. It's really late at night when I'm filming this, people. So, we continue onward. We see that... Well, basically, Broke Guy returns and has a big smile on his face. Probably insane by now. Probably driven to insanity by guilt. So he comes back to right his wrongs. He sets the place with oil to burn it down, but not before destroying the animatronics. Shadow Freddy helps him, because Shadow Freddy knows that they can spree the spirits this way, and they'd be free of the puppet's influence. And I also want to mention something. Why? Most people don't... Golden Freddy has a wait time before he kills you. Why? Well, from a game perspective, it'd be unfair. But there are plenty of times when people immediately have light... But when we play Five Nights at Freddy's, you gotta have lightning fast reactions. So even if you see Golden Freddy, you immediately flip up the camera, or pull down your mask, or look away from it immediately. So it's not that bad to assume that he didn't need to add that feature, as in FNAF 2, that's basically what happens. So what if there's any ways? Because Shadow Freddy has influence on him. They share the same body, so it would make sense that he would have some sort of influence on the Golden Freddy's mind. So, when he looks at you, he looks at you to see who you are. When you look away, he can't get a good look at your face, which is probably where he attacks to try and kill you. Because since he doesn't have an endoskeleton, he really can't do much besides use the animatronic, what little part of him he can to, like, either suffocate you in some way, or just use his internal pieces to crush you within him. Yeah. So, but when he looks at you, the puppet's influence takes over again, as he sees you as Purple Guy, due to your purple uniform. Tired. So as we continue onward, after Mike's done, FNAF 3 minigames happen. Purple Guy comes back to try and get some sort of redemption by destroying the body so he can set the spirits free. But, at this point, Shadow Freddy is already gone, as it would be around midnight. So the spirits become active. And without their bodies, they go after Purple Guy. Purple Guy freaks out. He flips the fuck out. And because he does something he remembers. He remembers wearing the Freddy head would be able to make it so he can hide from them. So, if a Freddy head scares them, but I don't think it's because they don't think you're drunk. I think it's because they're scared of you. They see a man in the mask and immediately they remember a man in the mask, the man with the animatronic suit on, led them away, and they get scared. So, if the massively spooks them away, makes them want to go away, what do you think wearing an entire suit would do to them? They immediately freeze in place. In fact, you're forced to look away from him when he puts it on. That the kids are so afraid they don't even want to look at him. But then It's wet, it's rusty, it's moist. Snap. The suit. What was... I just heard a noise. I don't know what it was, but it scared me. It startled me, to be more precise. And it just snaps. It kills him. Now then, please notice that phone guy in the FNAF 3 tape says bleed out. Most people assume that he gets crushed to death, but no. I think they bleed out because they'll stab into arteries. Since that Golden Freddy suit and the new suit would be worn with the eyes at the eye hole, but the original Fredbear suit we see with the face at the mouth. Meaning, the original design probably wasn't as deadly, which is why you have to be so careful. The way the spring locks are placed in the new suits are probably really delicate, which is why you're supposed to not moisten them. It seems very likely that if you do, you're dead. You're gonna end up causing the spring locks to snap certain areas. So, the original, let's say, in this new one, an arm snaps. If the arm snaps, it's more likely all of them will snap. But the original, I think, because they had a different design, if an arm snaps, that's the only one that snaps. So, if one snaps, boom, your arm's pretty much stabbed into and you can barely move it. So they used the crank, open the suit so they can get your arm out and take you to the hospital. The new one, they see the crank just to open it, but you have to be very careful. My dog's in the room. Very careful, because they'll all work at once. Meaning you'll straight up die. I think he wants outside. I've returned. Had to let my dog out, go to the bathroom. After that, they just all ran back in because the neighbors are setting off fireworks and it's freaking out the dogs. Yeah, back to the spring lock thing. I think if one broke in the new one, it would be a more likely chance that they would all break, which is why you had to be so careful. But in the old one, if one broke, only that one would break. Which kind of makes sense considering how they would have been redesigned. The Springtrap model in the Spring Bonnie suit we see, yes, it is simpler than the one we see in FNAF 4 minigames, but in FNAF 4 they're very clearly larger, having cheeks. This one seems more to fit the form of a human, which is very interesting, which has caused many people to recreate what they think the original would have looked like unwithered. So yeah, it's interesting. We already know it's a bit broken down by this point because we see like one of the earpieces is broken. So we know this thing's already a bit broken and old. Eventually, after he dies, it's not over. Because he haunts the suit, they can't go free. Now then, I'm going to stop there, as I'm just going to start bringing up what I think FNAF 4 nightmares are. I think it's the kid's own hatred towards his brother. Think about it. If he could make his own form copying one, what stops him from straight up controlling the animatronic? Sounds like there's another body in it. But it's clear that he his form does exist. In fact, when we look at it, the fact that it copies the wires might be that it could possibly even be a physical manifestation, as in not made up of the actual materials, but existing on the physical plane. That's why Shadow Freddy is shown walking, because his body he makes for himself is on the physical plane. Not representation that can be seen, but an actual physical form. Simply put, it just isn't as solid as we think. Because when you think about it, how would exactly, bit of science, but how exactly could Shadow Freddy be formed on a physical plane, or be formed at all, without him focusing his soul by moving molecules to make his form. So, it wouldn't be made of air, but he would take the molecules around and make some sort of solid thing that would look like how he wanted it. Eventually we see nightmares. This is what I'm getting to. All these things represent something different. The nightmares are each something haunting him. Obviously, Fredbear is his death. He doesn't want to have again, because he became Shadow Freddy most likely because he wanted a new life. Think about it. His life ended young. Add that to the fact that Jeremy survived. So how could he be Shadow Bonnie, you say? Oh yeah, I guess I should have mentioned this real quick. Bride of 87 survived. Wouldn't have survived very long. At most, if Phone Guy sounds confident, it could be that he survived a few years after. Jeremy survived a few years after, but think about it. Having no concept of fear or reason, Jeremy would have freaking jumped out into traffic. Yeah, it's very likely Shadow Bonnie is Jeremy, and Jeremy at this point would have been dead within a few years. Phone Guy's probably referring to Jeremy as living because he probably stayed in contact with Jeremy after the bite for a bit. Yeah, so I'm just a quick side note there. Guess I should have mentioned that earlier. Sorry, I'm not good at explaining things, as you can clearly tell. And so as we keep going onwards, we eventually see something else. Purple Guy. Yeah. Well, I guess I shouldn't wait that. I keep forgetting where I'm at. Shadow Freddy's Nightmares, or the FNAF 4 Kids Nightmares, which I'm going to use the headcanon made by the animator Bonnie Bunny. Yes, there's a channel called that. There are hundreds of channels called that, but he's an animator and he's pretty good. Check him out if you want to. I'm not gonna put a link in the description because I'm too lazy to. Just check him out. His animations are really cool to watch. And so I'm just gonna call him Kenny, as he does. Why? Because Kenny dies. Because Kenny dies at the end of his game, just like Kenny dies at the end. What other form? So it's pretty obvious what the joke is. So we continue. Each one was something different. Foxy hides in the closet because it represents his brother. Hiding in the closet, behind the TV, under his bed, just hiding everywhere, scaring him. Bonnie and Chica are right and left because they were right there at his brother's side helping him. Nightmare Freddy is made of Fredlings that become one big Nightmare Freddy. Multiple things acting as one large force. So, represents the fact that he was ganged up on. Next, there's Nightmare. People never really explain this, or dive deep into what he is. But think about it this way. Nightmare and Nightmare Fredbear share the same model. Who else share the same model? Golden Freddy and Shadow Freddy. So, with a bit of logic, it's like that Nightmare Freddy represents what he could have become, what he could make himself to be. Shadow Freddy Nightmare represents Shadow Freddy, or at least another version he could have taken on. And I also want to mention, Shadow Freddy takes the same form as Golden Freddy, whatever form he's in. Think about it. Nightmare Fredbear and Nightmare share the same model because said Shadow and Freddy and Golden Freddy share the same model because they share the same body. So Shadow Freddy has to mimic what the bodies connected to look like. At this point, Golden Freddy's body is destroyed when he confronts Nightmare, because in FNAF 3. So as we keep going, eventually he faces himself. All of emotions he felt as one final conglomeration. He doesn't defeat it, he doesn't fight it off, but he beats it away. Instead, he apologizes to the other kids. Now then, think about this way. In the last cutscene of FNAF 4, we see the kid in front of all the animatronics, or at least all the spirits, in the form of the plushies. And the first 3 lines are in a black font. Now then, the only time we ever saw a black font or a grayish font was from the kid. Why would he be apologizing to them? Most likely because he's guilty. He's feeling guilty about everything. Perhaps thinking that if he didn't become Shadow Freddy, maybe Purple Guy wouldn't have discovered, or the puppet wouldn't have figured out, that the animatronics could be haunted. So at this point, FNAF 3, Purple Guy is kind of even more broken. And the puppet is still revenge-filled, as the puppet will never appear ever in the same room as Springtrap within the game, still showing his disgust. While the other Shadow animatronics don't really care. Shadow Freddy can be in the hall while at the same time Springtrap is, because at this point they don't care anymore. They've realized that the puppet is corrupt. Give me a minute, gotta let my dog in. So, as we keep going, the Phantoms have sort of forgiven them. They don't really care anymore. They just want to get out of this. So, notice, not about saying that because it's the white font, it has to be the puppet. But, we're thinking of colors. Colors are not colors. Colors are what the color is, a light reflected off something. So, my dog, which is black, reflects no color at all. My brother's dog, which is a white dog, reflects all forms of color. So, the spoon reflects, which is a gray, reflects a few different forms of color, making the color gray. Don't ask why I have and the reason I have a spoon is because I haven't. And if you're wondering why I have a spoon in my room, breakfast. Just kind of still in here. Don't ask questions. So as we keep continuing, we just keep seeing more representations. The white font is a reflection of all colors. So, when we look at the characters, we see yellow, gold, red, blue, as well as brown. All colors mixed together is white. Removing all color is black. Now then, seeing that, but when you mix all paints, you get black. That's because the paint is really thick and dense. Because have you ever noticed that when you carry something that is the color black, it's usually a bit heavier? Whenever I have used black paint, it's usually a lot thicker than the other colors of paint, because it's a mix of all the different paints. It's so dense and thick, it can't reflect light, because it's too dense. And because of it, it gives the illusion that all colors mixed together is the color black. No, it's because you mixed all the matter together, not because you mixed all the colors. Therefore, that white font does not represent the puppet. And notice this. In the Happiest Day minigame, how do you get all the kids there? You play as FNAF 2 characters as well as FNAF 4 characters. That original Golden Freddy is a lot fatter than any other form of Freddy we saw, like the original Fredbear. So, as well as Shadow Bonnie. It could be that the puppet is, and that means the puppet is giving his apology. As the other spirits collected the cake, or at least collected the children to tell them to go where the puppet is because he wants to talk to them one last time. So he gives his apology. And notice this. When I look at the FNAF 3 minigame and the FNAF 4 this cutscene, something struck me. The way the balloons leave is the same order the plushies fade away, and tie into the way it works. Because Fredbear and the kid in the FNAF 4 last cutscene minigame, and in the FNAF 3 minigame, the Golden Freddy balloon are the last to leave. It's in tandem. Because at the same time, the spirits are telling him this, is telling him he doesn't need to feel guilty, they're still passing on, because they've finally been able to. So, the line is them not telling him, it's them telling him he doesn't need to feel guilty. So it's, can you hear me? I don't know if you can still hear me. Why is he talking to them? Because he's talking to the heads. He's talking to the spirits. I'm sorry. He's taking responsibility for something he shouldn't. And so with it, the puppet is the first spirit to leave. We can clearly see in the FNAF 3 minigame. So, the spirits talk to him. You're broken. We are still your friends. Do you still believe that? I am still here. Golden Freddy is the last one to leave. It looks as if he isn't going to, but then suddenly leaves. Because not too long after, the FNAF 4 kid leaves. And then we hear the beep noise. A flat line. With that means he's accepting his death, and he's finally moving on. At that, the fire breaks out pretty soon after. Why? Because Purple Guy's still stuck. In fact, I don't think Purple Guy kills you. I don't think Springtrap kills you. Think about it. He was insane as immortal. But when you die, you no longer have a psyche, technically. You don't have a brain. His body is completely rotten. All that's left is his soul. When all that's left is his soul, it can be corrupted. But an insane soul is not a corrupt skull. So, Purple Guy is still insane with guilt, which is why when somebody comes on with the files, it sort of sounds like he's saying, like, help me. At least that's what I think that's what I believe it sounds like. And he comes to you, so you can help him, to break the spring locks, because they're jamming his jaw shut. So he can't use his animatronic mouth. So he can't speak at all. Because of it, he can only mumble. So when he gets to you, he doesn't kill you. In fact, speaking, if Springtrap does get to you, that means either way, whether you work or not, the good ending will happen. Game over is just because you're not supposed to let Springtrap get to you by gameplay plan, but by a story and lore or timeline. Springtrap gets to the security guard, which is most likely Mike, which I'm pretty sure is Mike, because no one else within the FNAF, because he's like the only surviving person to encounter the spiritness and the paranormal stuff the animatronics have. So he helps it all. With the other spirits using him as some form of medium, effectively he helps gather the spirits so the public can give his apologies. All the spirits are set free. Purple Guy's still stuck. So, who do you think sets the fire? It can't be Springtrap, as from the looks of it, he doesn't really have a good time moving. His body's really rotten. As we see in FNAF 4, FNAF 4 and 3, he uses a 3D engine, unlike a 2D engine in 1 and 2. With it, you have to wonder, why doesn't he animate them like the FNAF 4 ones? Which, FNAF 4, the animatronics will actually move around. If they get really close, you shut the door and you hear them walking down the hall. In normal game, when they're down the hall, they'll usually walk back or jump out. You see things move. So, with that in mind, that means that Springtrap is staying still because he has a difficult time moving. He can barely move himself. Purple Guy can barely use this body he has because it's so broken. It's so old and rotten. He can barely move at all. In fact, I think Phone Dude probably gave the dude a bit of an upgrade at the probably tried to fix him just so he would walk around. So it's obvious he wasn't the one who set the fire. So the Shadows did. Because he still waits. that could be him lighting the fire and then moving on. With that, they're all free. That's my personal theory. Everything explained. And this video has now reached an hour, so I should probably end this here, but that's pretty much my entire theory. The corrupted puppet, a guilt-ridden purple guy, and someone haunted by their own night in a nightmare world they made for themselves. That's my personal theory. If you think this makes, and in my opinion, this makes sense. It ties everything together, explains all the questions, and also works well. Add up to the fact that you also, which what a story should do, give you something. From this story, I kind of want you to take some sort of moral from this, which I think you should try to do from every story. That's why I couldn't really accept the dream theory. It sort of works, but the plot holes are there are too many gaps in it. Mine doesn't really have any gaps. At least, it does, but barely any, and even still, those ones are rather small. I really hope you can't hear my dog scratching himself relentlessly, because I don't know, because I can hear him. Maybe you might be able to hear him scratching himself, because like he has really bad arthritis in his hips. He just like constantly scratches and chews himself. Lucky, stop scratching yourself, dog. He has really bad arthritis. So yeah, I'm gonna end this here. So the 3 morals I get from this is: don't let your greed control you, because obviously Purple Guy was driven by greed to kill. Don't let revenge control you, and don't feel guilty for a crime you did, and don't guilt trip yourself with something you're not responsible for. And that's my personal theory on everything in the FNAF world. Give this to MatPat or any other. Give this to. I hope my contribution helps gives a solid timeline with very little to no plot holes or gaps. Try my best to make a theory, which, even though I had this for a while, that makes sense. One that actually works. Something that allows you to take some from this, as well as something that allows you to gives you a more satisfying ending besides the dream theory. And if the dream story is true, Scott's a good story writer, good storyteller, but a shit storyteller. I mean, good storyteller, but a bad story writer. So no matter how good you make a story, if it's a dream, you can't take any sort of moral or anything, because when you make a story, you want people to gain something. If you make it a dream, then think about it this way. It's basically like someone telling you all the laws, but then immediately telling you those laws don't exist yet. Or they don't. It's like living in a world with, like, basically having laws, but you never enforce them. So they basically just don't exist. Yeah, that's my video, and it's an hour and 3 minutes long. My god. Granted, when you're explaining this series, MatPat's videos even dragged out a bit. Yeah, I hope my theory gives you a more satisfying ending if you didn't like what MatPat gave, or any other theorist created. So yeah, so long everybody. Arrgh!